And now it's my immense honor to introduce our keynote speaker, His Excellency Shaukat Aziz. His Excellency Shaukat Aziz has an exceptional legacy as Prime Minister of Pakistan. He steered one of the biggest economic turnarounds in recent history, taking Pakistan from the brink of bankruptcy. His time in government was marked by high economic growth, a reduction in poverty, and an upsurge in local and foreign investment. An acclaimed economist and financier, he served as finance minister from 1999 and as both premier and finance minister from 2004 to 2007. When he left office, having completed his parliamentary term, he became the first Prime Minister of Pakistan to do so. It was on the campaign trail in 2004 that Mr. Aziz survived an assassination attempt when an Al-Qaeda suicide bomber detonated a device that killed his chauffeur and 8 others. This tragedy reinforced his resolve to serve Pakistan and the Islamic world. He turned this terrible experience to the good. It spurred him to engage in the fight against global terrorism, and he built strong relations with the United States and other world powers. There are many examples how his tenure has aligned with the Khoja community, which benefited immensely by the growth in economy and reduction of poverty. Some examples of the Khushal Pakistan Water and Sanitation Program, supervising Pakistan's first free and fair local elections and making it possible for millions of people to take out microfinance loans for the first time. So I present to you statesman, global thinker, kindred spirit, His Excellency Shaukat Aziz. Please welcome him with a round of applause. The next gentleman I'm going to call upon does not need an introduction. However, it is indeed a great pleasure to introduce the infamous, acclaimed commentator and author, Mehdi Hassan. Mehdi Hassan is an award-winning British journalist, broadcaster, author, and political commentator. He is the presenter of both Upfront, filmed in Washington, D.C., and Head to Head, filmed at Oxford Union on Al Jazeera English. Very highly influential, Mehdi Hassan has conducted fascinating and wide-ranging interviews with the likes of Edward Snowden, Hamid Karzai, Ehud Olmert, Jimmy Wales, General Michael Flynn, and now His Excellency Shaukat Aziz. He was previously the political director of the Huffington Post, UK, and named one of the 100 most influential Britons on Twitter. He also has been included in the annual global list of the 500 most influential Muslims in the world for the past 2 years. So please welcome him with a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here and inviting me to come up here and speak with you. We'll just get straight into it. We've got limited time. We're going to have a bit of a chat, then we're going to take some questions from the audience. Sibtain mentioned in his introduction that you had an exceptional legacy as Prime Minister of Pakistan. You were Prime Minister from 2004 to 2007, and we'll come and talk about your economic legacy in a moment and how exceptional that was. But in terms of what people in this room and people out in the world know Pakistan for, they know Pakistan for violence, unfortunately, for terrorism, for militancy. On your watch, it wasn't exceptional. It was pretty much the same. I believe there was something like 500 terrorist attacks in the 4 years you were Prime Minister, something like 2,000 people killed in terrorist attacks.
Where do you live?
Currently, I live in the United States.
I thought so. Now go ahead.
So
you want me to say something?
No, I'm just wondering about the on the legacy of violence.
Yeah.
We didn't see us fall in violence. In fact, you were the target, as we heard, of an assassination attempt
Yes.
by terrorists.
Yes, I think it's thank you for, first of all, allow me to thank you, sir, Sultan Saab, and your colleagues for giving me the opportunity to be once again in this beautiful town of Davos. Davos, which when I first came here for the World Economic Forum, it was a forum. Today, the World Economic Forum is a convention. You go from one meeting to the other, no harm in that, but there are so many people, it's becoming a commercial enterprise. But Klaus, who runs the program, is an exceptional individual. And I think the air of Davos always will remember this forum, which has brought people together from all over the world. Coming to the subject at hand, and time is limited, I would say that legacy of anybody, whether you are running a country, a business, is judged by history and not by newspaper columns every day. Because newspapers, rightly, I don't blame them, they are looking for anything exciting to get the paper noticed and get news to the people and to their readers. As regards Pakistan, the whole issue of terrorism and extremism, if you want to understand Pakistan, you have to understand terrorism and extremism. I believe that this whole phenomena of terrorism in the world, it's no longer exclusive preserve of any country, is a function of deprivation. Deprivation, before you jump to conclusions, may I define it as I see it, which is when people feel deprived, they are not getting what they deserve, then they tend to express their frustration sometimes, not all the time, in violent ways. Deprivation can be loss, lack of income, lack of human rights, lack of justice, lack of a voice, to express your views, lack of education. So what the average human being in the world desires, if that is not given, you may create the environment where people feel vulnerable to those forces who want to create trouble, and even may get into trouble themselves. So this is, in my view, the real reason why terrorism and extremism, which incidentally is not the exclusive preserve of any region or culture or faith, it is global.
It's global.
It's global.
But Pakistan has suffered more than most.
Pakistan has suffered, but lately it's reduced substantially.
The reason, high base.
Yeah, but the reason is, if you allow me, that when we came in, this was a big issue. We doubled our GDP in 5 to 7 years. So that doesn't mean everybody got their incomes doubled, but the economy created so many jobs, so much activity, that the level of terrorism went down and down and down. It has since then started in other parts.
It went up on your last year in office, 2007, was actually the highest number of casualties from terrorists.
Casualties may have happened, but the number of incidents were coming down and down.
So let's just talk about Pakistani terrorism, because it's an interesting subject that everyone wonders about. You're right, the factors you've identified, undoubtedly, deprivation, human rights.
So I'm talking globally.
Agreed.
And Pakistan.
Globally, I think many people would agree. But they would also say there are region-specific issues. For example, in Iraq, a lot of it's to do with the Iraq War, the government that came after Iraq, et cetera, et cetera. In Syria, many people would say outside intervention has made matters worse. In Pakistan, a lot of people would turn and say, well, the government, the state, the ruling elites made the terrorism problem worse. Way before 9/11, Pakistani governments, politicians from your party and other parties were backing groups in Kashmir, in Afghanistan. And, to quote the late, great Malcolm X, the chickens came home to roost. Eventually, those people came home and brought that violence home.
Allow me to clarify this and explain it to you and the audience. In Pakistan, let's be specific, the primary cause of terrorism reaching the stage it did was the real boost came when the Soviet Union walked into Afghanistan. And hear me out, please. So the world reacted, and all major countries, headed by the United States and the European countries, Britain was active, so on and so forth, except perhaps the Soviet bloc and others, because Soviets were on the other side, and their friends, they didn't react. It was decided to train local Afghans and to train other people in neighboring countries, Pakistan being the major one, to go equip them, train them, arm them, fund them, so they can go and fight the Soviets and mobilize the local population. That is exactly what happened. Now, the entry strategy, you could argue, had some logic to it. But unfortunately, there was no exit strategy. So when the Soviets withdrew, there was an army of terrorists produced for attacking them in that region, Afghanistan being the most, and then Pakistan, of course. And people were recruited, trained, motivated, etc. They were left high and dry. There was no program, no activity to resettle them and bring them back to normal people. So what happened? That's when everybody broke down. I mean, the system broke down. Pakistan included didn't do what it should have done probably. United States abandoned everybody, said bye-bye, it's over, we are worried about somewhere else. And these guys are hanging high and dry. They said we gave our whole youth to this cause, and now where are you? So that's when we came in. Our government came in, and I was the finance minister, and we worked on reforms, because you can't just give money out to everybody, it'll be consumed. You got to build a structure where people's lives get better. And in Pakistan, no matter what database you look at, otherwise I'll send you some, which it will tell you that growth started, the GDP growth.
Yeah.
It's a very simple indicator. I can go into more detail.
I agree, but
let me finish my point.
I want to talk about the economy.
Yeah,
but there isn't as clear-cut a link.
No, I'm talking about terrorism and radicalization.
Because there's something called Kashmir.
Yeah, Kashmir,
which is a big driver of these violent groups, nothing to do with GDP.
Let me tell you something, sir. Kashmir, I'm from Kashmir. My mother is a Kashmiri, so I can relate to you offline also in more detail. Kashmir was always there well before Afghanistan started. And the Kashmiri people Kashmir has two parts, one is in India, one is in Pakistan. The UN decided that there'll be a plebiscite. Each Kashmiri will be allowed to decide whether they want to go to Pakistan or go to India. They said, okay. That UN resolution till today has not been implemented. It's still there on the statutes of the UN, but nobody has implemented it. So their frustration, the Kashmiri frustration was there. Pakistan did help them, of course, but it was homegrown. And then they came to Pakistan and said, look, you guys promised, you help us fight the other side.
Yeah, and you gave them weapons,
we
you gave them money.
Yes, and
some would say you gave them a pretty vicious ideology.
No, we didn't. They had decided what they had to do. The circumstances were created to give them that ideology.
A lot of leaders leave office.
No crime, no change in a mindset for people deciding to kill themselves happened just for an ideology. It is more than that.
Of course.
They felt deprived. They feel wronged. They said, we had voted to join Pakistan.
Agreed.
The world, under UN resolution.
But groups like...
And when it doesn't suit the world, they look the other way.
Agreed, but groups like Harkat al-Mujahideen, these groups can't survive without ISI support, Pakistani military support, certain preachings.
But these groups, whether there's ISI or not, there was a cause.
We're
missing the main point.
No, I'm agreeing on that point.
We've
agreed on that point.
You're agreeing on the right point.
We agreed on the right point. Now let's deal with the bit we disagree with, which is, I'm just wondering, as a former Prime Minister, as a former Prime Minister, do you regret, because now you're not in office, you can speak freely to a crowd here in Davos. Do you say, you know what? We shouldn't have backed some of those horrible groups in Kashmir. We shouldn't have backed some of those crazy people in Afghanistan. Because you know what? Now we're suffering because of that. Blowback.
Now let me tell you. You want the answer?
Yeah.
Let me tell you. I would say again today that what happened was the right thing which happened. The world abandoned us. Actually, what you are looking, the real root cause is that the P5, who actually passed those resolutions, the permanent members of the Security Council, would go ahead, do this, we'll fund you. Who funded the people going into Afghanistan?
Saudis.
No.
And the US.
The number one funder.
You tell me.
Where you live.
The US.
Yes. So that's the country which gave the most funding, training, weapons to all these people. And all the groups you have named, sir.
Yeah.
They are very attractive.
But they gave the money, they didn't give it direct, they went through the Pakistani ISI. There's no point washing your hands of that.
I can give you...
I mean, I interviewed Asad Durrani.
What's your point?
I interviewed Asad
know him,
Durrani,
of course.
former head of the ISI.
Yeah.
I said to him, don't you feel bad that you take money from the Americans and give it to the Taliban? The American complaint, President Trump said recently, we will crack down on Pakistan, taking our money and giving it to terrorists. And he said, you shouldn't go to the circus if you can't ride 2 horses.
Yeah.
Many people would say...
Who said that?
Asad Durrani said that.
Oh, really?
Many people would say Pakistan is a very duplicitous ally. You take money from the Americans and you give it to really horrible anti-American groups. You dispute that?
No, we absolutely dispute that. I'm telling you, the reason this money was given... And you see, America is not a baby. They're not infants. They are a major world power who watch us, who hear us, who know everything.
Yeah.
Because they have satellites all over coming out of the sky every day. So they gave us the money, and by the way, their people were next to our ISI people. ISI didn't operate in a closed-door thing. The CIA and many other agencies, which are not even known to people, were active. So they gave money. By the way, Chatham House rules here. Okay. So
with 4 cameras running, but okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Good luck. Good luck.
No problem. Why not? Okay.
I love that. 10 minutes into the discussion, he says, Chatham House rules, after the ISI comes up.
No, the reason is because I mentioned, you know what.
Okay.
So that's
we're running out of time. Finish your point, and then we'll move on to other subjects.
The point is, you are giving a narrative. You've fallen for the narrative given by who? The United States.
By the former head of the ISI who told me to my face, we took money from America and gave it to groups.
Yeah, that is true. We didn't take money. We were given money, loads. C-130s would come, any currency you want, please give it out.
I'm not talking about the Cold War period. Even now, you're taking billions of dollars every year and giving it to dodgy groups.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not a cent.
Not a cent.
You check it out and come back.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the United States.
I have the facts.
Let's talk about the United States.
Sure.
Close ally of Pakistan.
Donald Trump?
Donald Trump is now president. A lot of people who don't like Donald Trump will have heard his statement recently on Afghanistan, where he's sending more troops back in, and they will have heard him say, we're going to crack down on Pakistan. And a lot of people say, I don't like Donald Trump, but he makes a fair point there. Do you think relations between the United States and Pakistan are now going to suffer over the next 3 years, should he stay in office?
Look, let me just... with due respect to everybody, educate everybody a little bit on Pakistan-US relations in 2 sentences.
Yeah.
Pakistan has been the most allied ally of the United States from day one, and the most sanctioned ally of the United States. So if you talk about US-Pakistan relations, it is contradictory from day one. When the seed was sown, at one point you gave us arms, money, whatever.
I'm British, just to be
clear. And at the same time, and the British, and at the same time, every sanction in the US Constitution has been put on Pakistan. We still talk, we still engage, we still do everything. So if you say it's a contradictory relationship, when one side you're getting aid, the other side you're putting sanctions, the answer is yes, it is contradictory.
To be fair,
but in life,
you brought some of those sanctions on yourself by creating an illicit secret nuclear weapons program.
I'll tell you about that too, I'll tell you about that too. Look,
any regrets there on that?
Not at all, not at all.
Just checking.
There were no sanctions on us not to produce nuclear weapons. If you show me one, I'll take you for dinner.
Okay.
Okay? But I could do more than that, take you for just Starbucks, but I'll take you to dinner.
Okay.
So the point is, there were no sanctions on us that we won't produce nuclear weapons. When the US, again the US comes in, they choked our weapon supply. They were our only supplier. We were in CETO, we were in CENTO, Dulles Brothers, whatever they came up with in those days when many people were not born here, 60s, we agreed to join. Well before Trump came, well before all these people came, because we believed in freedom and we believed in an open society. But since these sanctions were imposed on us, at the same time, Afghanistan started. And then we started getting aid. So it's a very complex, confused relationship, which is one where the flame grows very high in times when Pakistan is needed.
Right now.
And when Pakistan is not needed, you pick up the phone, there's nobody on the other side. That is the crux of the US-Pakistan relationship. By the way, I have discussed this with their government, with their presidents, in a more open surrounding and said, look, sir, this is our problem. Either you're with us or either you're not. When the weather is some way, you go this way.
They seem to say the same thing to you, either you're with us.
Yeah, they can say anything they want. This is a free society.
Interesting relationship.
Yeah.
A lot of people in this room, I'm guessing, are quite worried about North Korea. In the news in recent weeks, we've been hearing a great deal about North Korean nuclear testing. Will there be World War III on the North Korean peninsula? Prior to the recent North Korean stuff, though, most nuclear experts were most worried not about North Korea, but about India, Pakistan. That was seen as the place which could see the next nuclear conflagration.
Okay.
How worried are you about nukes going off either
Thank you for the question.
intentionally or unintentionally?
First of all, I'm probably the only person in this room who's been to every nuclear site of Pakistan, above ground, below ground, in the air, and on the sea. So I can tell you as a layman, I'm not a nuclear expert, that the physical security and the checks and balances and how we keep these devices and how we undo these devices, if necessary, etc., is world class. We have got the best people trained by...
There's no way the TTP could get hold of Pakistani nukes.
No way. Even if they get a piece, a nuclear weapon is not a grenade. It is a very complex operation. Even to use it, you need a very massive infrastructure and technology to get the thing to go where it has to go. So without going into more classified details or any classified details, I would say it is a very tricky thing to get a nuclear. Don't believe the movies where you see this guy in a briefcase and the light ticking and then, this is all for cinema. But in the real world, nuclear weapons are very complex. There are no buttons, you just press and everything happens.
And you're a great supporter of Pakistan's nuclear deterrent.
I am, and I'll tell you why. Because as time passed, with sanctions, and other countries in our neighborhood getting the latest weaponry from wherever they can, they had more resources, to India, to be specific. So either you live in that shadow of being constantly a 10-to-1 ratio, more or less, some say 8-to-1, whatever it is. It's a substantive lack of balance between the two. So for Pakistan, strategically, the only way to get parity in a situation which would be, in our view, such that it will prevent war, not encourage war, was to have a nuclear program. By the way, we didn't start the nuclear program. I will tell you, one day we got up and on our border in parts of Sindh facing Rajasthan, there was a big mushroom. Everybody said, what plant is this? I mean, this is growing to the sky. It was the first nuclear test in Madam Indira Gandhi's time, right, Prime Minister? That's when we started our program.
You didn't start, you're saying the Indians started?
No, it's all...
You did help start the North Korean nuclear program, so thanks for that.
No, we didn't.
A.Q. Khan didn't sell nuclear technology?
Absolutely not. A.Q. Khan wouldn't know a nuclear device if it hit him.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
Chattermouse or not, that's a good line.
Yeah.
But that is the accusation that you helped spread nuclear weapons.
Look, acquisitions,
the world's worst
I can give you 10 acquisitions about anybody in this room. If I do some research.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, no. Absolutely.
Well, let me ask you one quick. We're out of time.
Tell me, where are you from?
Where am I from? I won't say because then you'll accuse me of bias. My parents are from Hyderabad, India. On the nuclear question.
They have good food.
Very good food.
Yeah. Spicy.
Let me ask you a very quick question on nuclear weapons.
Yes, sir.
Please. You
please.
say it's as a defensive technique, but Musharraf, your former boss, President Musharraf, recently admitted that he was going to use nukes as a first strike, I think in Kargil. I think he admitted in an interview a few weeks ago.
He didn't. I saw the interview.
Yeah.
He said we thought of doing that, but obviously when the thing is discussed, there's a whole command structure which discusses. One man cannot press a button.
Wouldn't be a deterrent then, would it? You'd be starting a nuclear...
No, but everybody, it was rejected. He thought of it. Now, thoughts you can't, there are people in this room, there are 100 plus people here, there are 200 thoughts at the same time in this room.
But I'm guessing
each part of the brain is thinking.
But none of them thought about nuking.
That's
a pretty specific thought.
But a casual comment on...
Casual comment about
casual comment in an interview.
Okay.
No, he would, in the system, I am telling you, the checks and balances are such.
Do you like President Musharraf, former President Musharraf?
I like him, he's a great...
He wasn't very kind to you in his memoirs.
In his memoirs? Yeah. No, I read it. My English is not as good as yours.
He said
but I read it.
No, it's much better. He said,
I read it and I thought he was fair.
He said when you were made Prime Minister, you didn't even know what was going on. It was presented to you as a fait accompli, I think is the phrase he uses.
No. As Prime Minister, of course, I had to be sworn in, so I knew what was going on.
And you wanted, and we're going to talk about, I promised we'd talk about the economy, which I know you're very proud of the economic achievement. GDP, I believe, doubled on your watch.
Yes.
And there was a big boom.
Yes.
Musharraf, when he writes about it, takes all the credit. He doesn't mention you at all in his memoir when he talks about the growing economy.
No, but
You're a modest guy.
I'm very happy that he takes credit because we were together.
Okay.
And he doesn't have to, I'm not an insecure person that I want in every para my name mentioned. I think those days are over. The world judges you. But now, let me tell you one example. The world judges us. You'll say, how do you know they judge you well? Today, I'm advising countries, which I can't name because it's not proper, but on economic policy. So they obviously, there's somebody in the world, and the president too, innumerably said in front of me when we were sitting with George Bush, he's the man who turned my economy around.
And when you turn it around...
So I don't want you to mention me every day, for God's sake. I'm not insecure.
But at least George Bush knows you did it.
No, George Bush knew it before.
As long as George Bush knew, that's what's important. You say you turned around the Pakistani economy.
Yes.
Some people say after you left, it turned around again. You left behind, it was a boom. It was a credit-led boom, a finance-led boom, and the bubble burst. Like every bubble burst, it wasn't sustainable
I think
growth.
you're not an economist.
It wasn't sustainable growth.
No, you're not an economist.
Am I not an economist?
Yeah.
No, I'm not an economist.
Yeah, so because you read all this.
Okay.
So you know this.
But lots of economists have said that.
Yeah,
about
because, you see what we did.
You're a banker.
Let me tell you, I'm a poor banker.
Okay.
Yeah.
And bankers have a great record on economic policy in recent years.
Let me tell you something. The strategy we took, the strategy we implemented, was clearly out of the box. And the average economist did not feel comfortable with it. Even in Pakistan, forget outside, our own economics team said, sir, this is way. But what we did, and it's acknowledged, the model is acknowledged everywhere, even the IMF came and told me, when I met the managing director at these, the annual, he said, Mr. Aziz, your economic program is something which no country has done.
I mean, there was lots of privatization. That's not that original.
No, but there were many other things.
Okay, but the central part of it was liberalization and privatization.
No, deregulation was the central part.
And no one's ever done deregulation? I mean, that's a common IMF prescription for developing countries.
No, IMF, we never even talked to them.
I'm just saying it doesn't sound that innovative to a non-economist.
Everybody knows, including the managing director of the IMF, we respect them, but we don't agree with them on anything.
Okay.
Because these are bureaucrats trying to run an economy. They were never in the real economy. The reason...
Were you not a bureaucrat running it?
Not at all, no.
You were an ex-banker who was appointed Prime Minister.
But listen to me.
Is that not the definition of a bureaucrat?
No, that's not. You have to get your English improved.
Okay. I said you speak... I did say you speak better English than me. No, I did say that.
A bureaucrat is what... Let me tell you what a bureaucrat is. A bureaucrat is somebody who comes through the civil service, appears in an exam, he then goes from one position to the other, one department to the other, and then he reaches a certain level. So, but let me make the point on economic policy and our performance. You see,
it wasn't sustainable, was it? Let's just deal with that point. It didn't sustain.
Just hold on.
Yeah.
Economic policy, if you follow the IMF prescription, and I have said this publicly, I've said it in the book, I've said it everywhere, they do not look or worry about the real economy and what the man in the street is. Basically, our philosophy was very simple. Make the pie of the economy bigger by creating opportunity. Just the role of government is to create an enabling environment for growth, not actually investing themselves. Get out of the way. Leave the private sector to grow. Let the credit markets judge whether it's a good risk or bad risk. The government is the last entity in any country to judge whether he gets a loan.
That was a very popular pre-2008 philosophy. I think
I know, still, my philosophy hasn't changed, sir. I don't know where you get these dates.
Okay.
But the philosophy...
The global financial crash.
Yeah. They are crashes because people didn't follow the philosophy. So the point is, economic growth has to hit the real economy. And then I'll tell you.
But it wasn't real growth. It was credit-led growth. That's not real growth.
There was no. Let me
unleashed a consumer boom.
Okay, let me tell you about the poor in Pakistan. Forget the rich who go. The poor has no access to credit. did not grow their standard of living through credit. How did they grow? The pie got bigger. So the guy who was selling 10 glasses a day in Bori Bazaar, Karachi, was selling 25 because there was more money in the market. Real incomes went up, growth went up. So all that provides a fillip to growth and economic development in the emerging markets.
Okay.
In the mature markets, it's different.
This is an audience of people who know their stuff on these issues. We've got very limited time left. We're going to take some questions from the audience. If you want to raise your hand, the microphone will come to you.
Thank you very much. My name is Khoja. I just want to interject a small anecdote here. Pakistan is known as a AAA rated country. There, they say it is AAA stands for America, Army, and then Allah. So that's what Pakistan is. And I think I agree with Shaukat Bhai that his economic program was unorthodox, anti-IMF. This is the only way any economic program in any developing country will succeed.
Okay.
And last point, very small. If you have read Professor Mamdani's book, Good Muslim, Bad Muslim,
Yes.
you see that he opens with a very telling observation that President Reagan invited the leaders of the Taliban to the White House
The Mujahideen,
and
yes.
said, Mujahideen,
Yeah.
Taliban.
these,
Well, there wasn't a Taliban.
these are the equivalent of our
Yes,
founding
he did.
fathers. So America cannot shirk responsibility for what happens in Pakistan.
Yeah. I think we all agree on that. Yes.
So I don't really have a really economic or political perspective. I'm very layman. I'm an engineer, a software engineer, right? When I look at Pakistan, it seems to me Pakistan is a country that really supports the army at the expense of the deprived people of Pakistan. And you can think of the army as the thugs who, loot the resources of Pakistan and have turned into Pakistan, a sinning country.
A what?
Pakistan, a sinning country.
A cynic.
You haven't heard that one before, had you? Use that in your next speech. Yes, gentleman there. Okay.
Okay. Sajjad Ibrahim, just the numbers, even if you take it from 1999 to 2007, the GDP could not have doubled. You'd have had to have 9% growth every year, which Pakistan did not have.
Okay. And then I think Samir there wants a question, then we're going to have to wrap. Sorry, we've run out of time then.
My name is Samir, right? Just a question or your opinion on Pakistan today, because obviously, we've seen some stability and growth, and then again, again, you can see this decision, or we've seen stock markets again crash very recently. So just your opinion on Pakistan.
Okay, so do you want to work backwards? What's your take on Pakistan's situation today? How stable, unstable, given the Supreme Court, the stock markets, etc.? Briefly, we're almost out of time.
I think Pakistan is a country still faced with many challenges. The political process is still in this, the cement hasn't dried yet. It's been a while, but it hasn't dried yet because we have frequent changes in government which happen beyond or out of the cycle, which, due to elections, etc. Having said that, I think we have come a long way because today the press is free. If you read the Pakistani press, television in our time went from there was one PTV1, then we got PTV2, Pakistan Television, and you just let it go. With the result, the press is free. Today on television, you can have criticism every day on the government, healthy criticism. There may be some below the belt, but gradually that side has matured too. So I think we are a much more open society. We are much more confident about our future and ourselves. If you go to Pakistan, you see growth. The standard of living is rising. I'll tell you, in my period, 8 years in government, just the Honda motorcycle plant alone, 3 times I opened the doubling of the plant for Honda. And many other, this was part of the thing. So the point is, jobs are being created. People's standard of living is better today. Of course, the expectations are much higher. So that happens when a country is growing.
Just deal with the.
So I think it's gone. Now, will you say poverty has disappeared? No. No country in the world, poverty ever disappears. It does reduce gradually. That's happening.
Just deal with the point here about the doubling of growth.
Doubling of growth. Yes, you are looking at the real growth. When you talk about doubling the size of the economy, you take nominal. So in nominal terms, the GDP more than doubled. That's still the case, sir. You have to look at the nominal numbers.
Okay, and then the question.
Nominally, Pakistan did not grow 9%.
It did, sir. It did, because you have to add the rate of inflation on the real growth.
Okay.
That's how you get the nominal. I can explain it to you.
Let's deal with the.
Give me your card.
You guys can
explain it.
continue this after. We're almost out of time.
Yes.
Deal with the question about the very interesting question about the army. A lot of people point out that the reason the Kashmir situation is not resolved, the reason democracy has never taken root in Pakistan properly, because you have this massive, overprivileged army. It also has huge economic clout, owns vast sections of the economy, has investment in vast sections of the economy, takes a lot of money out of the GDP. I think one of the highest rates of GDP devoted to defense of any country.
Clarify.
The country that indulges the army too much.
I think, first of all, the army budget growth year on year. I was the finance minister and a pretty, I wouldn't say, well, I did not delegate any ability of anybody in the government to increase their budget.
Okay.
It was, and at great personal cost, I did that.
We're not going to argue numbers again.
Okay.
Just a general principle.
Now,
is there an oversized role of the army in Pakistan?
I'll give you one example of a comment made in the room. Army has a huge industrial complex, this, that. Let me tell you what they have, because I know a little bit about industry. The army invests only through two vehicles. Please bear me out. The Khoja Foundation, which is a foundation for retired army people and dependents of army personnel who have died in under any circumstance. Secondly is the Army Welfare Trust, which is what it sounds like. It's a welfare trust. There is no other equity going from the army into any industrial activity. They run a few sugar mills.
Okay.
And they
But
run
the general
a few,
principle, the army has an oversized role in Pakistan compared to other countries. Do you accept
I don't know about other countries, but I can tell you in our case, they are demonized because they, they opened a sugar mill or something. The point is
because they carry out coups.
because this is no.
They also carry out coups.
That's a different thing.
Okay.
But I'm talking about the economic side.
Okay.
You'd
I
ask
think
about
he was asking a wider point.
So this notion that the army has taken now, of course, if you look at the defense budget as a percentage of GDP, it hasn't moved up that much. But the problem we face because of the geopolitical situation, the replacement of hardware and the new technology coming in is very, very good, but the price has gone up. If you buy a fighter plane today, the numbers just go out of whack. So we are suffering from that syndrome, so the numbers will look very inflated, but it's not that it's going in somebody's pocket, not at all.
Okay. We're out of time. We could talk about so many more topics. I do have to ask one question on a topic that wasn't raised, but I think is relevant to a lot of people in this room. Very briefly, last question I'm going to ask myself. We didn't talk about the horrific treatment of minorities in Pakistan. A lot of people in this room, I'm guessing, are Shia Ithnashri. Do you think Pakistani prime ministers, including yourself, have done enough to protect Pakistan's Shia population from what looks like ethnic cleansing, a form of genocide, some might argue, in terms of the targeting?
Well, I would say that certainly in the 8 years I was in government, we had a few incidents and we took really strong action, when certain processions were attacked, etc. And we haven't had that for quite a while now. There was an incident in Quetta many years ago. I remember we were in government. And I remember having a meeting with the intelligence community and the security people. The president was there, I was there, and all the Quetta people were caught. There are still incidents happening, but the number has reduced substantially. And all during Muharram, etc., we have special security arrangements. The Imam Bargahs are guarded very carefully. The state is doing what has to be done. Is there room for improvement? Of course there is room for improvement. But generally this thing has come down. Also, in our army, intelligence, bureaucracy, etc., I, for one, can look you in the eye and say, I never even asked, is this person a Sunni, a Shia, or a whatever other sects there may be. Everybody is there. We even have, look at me. I went to a school called St. Patrick's, Catholic school. My sisters went to a school called St. Joseph's. When I tell people now, even last night in London at the dinner of Habib Bank. Somebody sitting next to me talked about Pakistan. And when I told them all my education was in a Catholic school, they said, "You have them in Pakistan?" I said, "They're still there." So people have these impressions. Father Raymond, as said, was our principal. Many of you may remember, who were in St. Pat's, and so on and so forth. So Pakistan does get demonized. Who's to blame? We ourselves are to blame. We have to do more to explain to the people that, look, we have a normally functioning society. We had no terrorism till Afghan war started. This is a legacy of our support to what happened in Afghanistan. Then we have to improve our relations with India. You haven't talked about that.
Run out of time.
We were so close, this is very important, very close to signing a treaty on Kashmir, agreed with the BJP government of the time, and I think India's leadership at the time, Mr. Vajpayee, had agreed with us to sign an agreement which would have solved the issue. He said one thing.
Okay.
He said, "I agree with everything." We exchanged the drafts. He said, "Let's wait till the election, because if I do it now, it'll muddy the waters. After election, we'll do it." He lost the election. Otherwise, the deal would have been signed. Now things are a bit queasy. The last thing I would say...
Musharraf didn't have to worry about it.
No. Let me tell you something.
We're out of time.
Very important last point. The current government appears to be hostile to the Muslim community.
Understatement.
Appears to be. And one incident happened on my watch which has affected my thinking and life forever. I was woken up in the middle of the night. We have people who work round the clock. So I said, why is the phone ringing? He said, "Sir, I have to tell you something which has happened. A train of Pakistani Muslim pilgrims, they go to various shrines in India, Ajmer, etc., was stopped in Gujarat state. The track was blocked. All the doors of the train were locked. Our trains have these lock arrangement if not used, but you can lock it if you want. Bring a padlock and lock it. And the whole train, ladies and gentlemen, was burnt alive. I was Prime Minister then. I called Mr. Manmohan Singh, the Prime Minister of India. And a long conversation, he said, "I'll look into it." I said, "Mr. Prime Minister, so many people have been burnt alive yesterday, and you are telling me you'll look into it? Please." And he's a lovely man. I respect him a lot. He was embarrassed to the core. But there are elements there who look at the Muslim community this way. And I think all of us have a role to play to make interfaith harmony, intersectoral, interracial, all these things have to be much more given more attention, because we have to learn to live together with people with different ideologies, faiths, and what have you, not burn them and kill them. So the reason I mention is it's relevant to some of the leadership in India today. They were the same people who did all this.
Thank you so much. We're out of time.
One last question,
Here I was there. I'm really, first of all, thank you very much. I think it was very interesting discussion. To say the least, I think Mr. Aziz's involvement in international politics, and because I'm based in Dubai, knowing that you're all over the world on economic affairs, it could be very interesting for us Khoja community to know about the risks and opportunities that exist under the current economic and political turmoil around the world. And I think our Khoja community does not all come from India. Mehdi may have given you that impression on his personal bias, but let me just tell you that we are.
We didn't even mention India. I didn't even mention India.
From Al Jazeera.
I didn't mention India. I could have said India's had 50 years of democracy while Pakistan hasn't. I could have said India's economy is so much bigger than Pakistan. I didn't say any of it.
I know. That's why Qatar is also a little bit away because of Al Jazeera. But let's go back to, we are talking about not missing the opportunity, because if you look at the graph that talks about where the Shia community of Khoja's background exists, it is from Pakistan being the largest, India, Canada, Africa is very large. So what are the challenges and risks in Middle East? Because a lot of us are settled in Middle East. Somebody even asked a question, that is there a risk of war in Middle East? So if you can just
I'll give a very short answer, because The time has really gone, and I must say I enjoyed the session.
Thank you so much for.
It's not over yet, though. Let me say.
I'm done. You carry on. I'm finished.
So
I'm waiting for my time.
let me say that to Raza's question, I won't answer all of it because it'll take too much time, but to say that all of you as entrepreneurs have really, you're in a very exciting part of life and what you're doing. I would just say that the key to success is to don't look in the rearview mirror all the time. Once in a while is okay. There is enough happening in the world of new ideas, new technologies. Look at how, this little thing I carry has changed everybody's life. Don't laugh. This is no longer just a phone. It is your banking system. Money comes through it. You can send money out. You can see the weather. You can see the sports. It's an information giant in your little pocket. It has changed everything. You can access everything. In the old days, I remember when I was a kid, we were very excited. My dad, tonight we are going to call your auntie in Lahore from Karachi, not too far away. And all the kids, we would be listening. He would book the call, and then we'd connect as if we are connecting to the moon. Technology is changing. You have to change your ways. You must professionalize. One of the things I noticed, having dealt with a lot of families around the world, as you know, I worked in all parts of the world, that they don't let go. The elders don't let go. The younger people don't get authority fast enough. When the elders die, then they get it, but it may not be the right time and may be too late. I would say, those of you who are elders, give empowerment to your next generation while you are active and healthy. So you can guide them. You can guide them. You can critique them, because they know you are their parents and well-wishers. If you critique them, they do it because they care about you. So that's one thing. Secondly, the new economy, this being one, but there are many others. Your group can really have a chat. I'm sure you have something on the system where you can talk to each other. There are innumerable opportunities today being created, not just in the United States, elsewhere too. China, I go to China, I sit on many boards there. I can't begin to tell you what's going on there. So the point is, innovate, think out of the box. Just looking in the rearview mirror won't get you there. You have to learn from history, but there's a lot of opportunity. And for the elders, I would say, let your youth, your younger people in the family, empower them earlier. If there's one lesson we learned in Citibank, they had many faults, but the one lesson we learned, the culture, the DNA in the company was sink or swim. So they said, hey, you, Shaukat Aziz, you are going to go to Jordan, little country, and you are the country head. Don't call us, we'll call you. And so you arrive, you try to sink, swim, whatever happens. Empowerment stretches you. And empowerment, if the parents are still around and elders are around, is really the best gift you can give to your siblings. And I would encourage you to consider that. And the last thing, integrity. Deen and dunya, whatever you believe in, never forget that. Integrity with yourself, with your family, with your customers, with your marketplace, with your government. This is the ultimate. People say, do you practice it? I said, we try to. So we all do. Of course, these are values which you have to practice. And we must repeat this often enough so the younger population understands the merit of transparency, integrity, and helping your neighbors, helping the needy, but keeping your mind open. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.